so we are on to the next one now. So, and this one we're gonna set up the Firebase. We're gonna need this for making sure that we have an authorization system in place, and also for database purposes. Okay. Now, keep in mind, if you have a small to medium sized website with certain amount of content, like considerable amount of content to maybe small amount of content, then this will be just fine. If you go into the weeds with data, if you're into, I don't know, if you have a major size software, probably Firebase won't be enough and you have to expand out and build out into something bigger. But for right now, Firebase is probably going to be fine. So just discuss with your team if this is the best solution for you. But it is for most small to medium sized businesses. Okay. All right. So what do you do with this? Well, first of all, Firebase, right? You go to Firebase. Let me just figure out. Let's just show you how I got here to begin with. Assuming that I don't have an account, so let me just go ahead and sign out of all accounts. Sure, whatever. Let's go to Firebase. If I just want to look up Firebase, and up here, I think that's the one that I clicked. I could have clicked on. Maybe it doesn't really matter. I think, yeah, you end up in the same spot. All right, so you end up over here. You end up in Firebase here, and then you click on Get Started, and it'll ask you to, build an account. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my normal, account, which you won't be able to see my password because I am on a key. And then you end up here, which is your console. Okay. So you're gonna have an option here to create a project. When you create a project, we're gonna call this, what is it called? Close the right here. Oh, close the wrong one. MediPlus. So we're gonna call it MediPlus. Why not? So I'm gonna call it MediPlus, and it's gonna give you like a little unique ID for your project here. Don't worry about that. Continue. We're gonna continue. Enable Google Analytics for these projects. We're not gonna need it. It says recommended. Sure, do it. Leave it, I guess. But continue. Doesn't matter. Select an account. Obviously, you gotta have an account, and especially if you're gonna use the email part. For the email account, you're gonna have to have what is called a paid account, but it's something else. It has a different name to it. You have to have a business credit card attached to it, even though you never get charged really, because it's really, most of it is free. I've never gotten charged. All right, create a project. It's gonna take its time. Never really takes that long. And then once the project is created within Firebase, it's gonna give you some credentials that you're going to use in order to create your settings, your Firebase file. Now we're gonna modify those settings. We're gonna grab what they got, but then we're gonna change some stuff around, and we're gonna make it fit our project. Okay. Now, mind you, if you're into app buildings like app iPhones, what do you call it, iOS or Android, then this is great as well because they provide you with everything that you need from Firebase. All right, it's ready. So click continue, and it takes us straight into our project. You're here. It's Spark Plan. So the Spark Plan is okay. So this, the pay as you go, is what you really want to get if you want to get into the weeds with a lot of other projects that they have. But for right now, let's see how far we can get with the Spark Plan, right? The free one. But if we have to go to the Blaze, which we will for the emails, then you'll have to select this plan and then make sure that you have a business a credit card or debit card attached to it. And like I said, I don't think they'll, I've never been charged, but whatever. I'm not gonna promise that. But let's just keep going with this part for now until we can get no further. All right, so what we need to do is we need to add an app to get started. This is for iOS, this is for Android, and this is for the web. So this is the one that we're doing. We're doing a website. So we're gonna start here and call it whatever you want. So I'm gonna call it, again, the same thing, MediPlus. And register the app. So if you want Firebase hosting, you can also do that, but No, we're not gonna do that now. And it's gonna do this thing. And here we go. So it's gonna tell you that you need to install Firebase. But if you remember back in the first few steps behind, we already did this in a long tail of PNPM. But just to make sure, you always want to make sure that you have what you need. You go to package JSON and you look for Firebase here. And if you do have that in your dependencies, then you don't have to do this anymore. You should have, if you're following along, you should have had it, but just in case. If not, then do this, but with the P and PM. So now we're gonna need this. We're gonna click here to copy this. And then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna make sure you click on the outside area. Click on a folder icon there, and then we're gonna create a Firebase folder. And then inside that Firebase folder, we're gonna create a file called firebase.js. And then in this file is where we're going to paste this stuff. That stuff outside, you know, the entire folder is where we're gonna put more Firebase stuff eventually. But this Firebase JS inside that folder is for this particular thing only, for just the configs. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna change some stuff here. So let's get rid of these comments just so we can have a cleaner look at what we're doing. First of all, we're not gonna do any analytics, so they're in the project. We left it checked, so it's part of the project if we wanted to. Of course, don't try to use this. Okay, do your own. Don't copy and paste this stuff here, because this is only based on the project that I basically created within my account. It won't work for you, so even if you try to use it, I'm gonna delete this project anyway, and you're not gonna be able to use it. So don't use this, use your own. Okay. All right. So we're gonna need to initialize the application, and here's the analytics thing, which we're not really gonna use it. So we'll just go ahead and get the analytics out of there for now. All right. So first thing is what we're gonna do is we're gonna initialize a couple of more things. We're gonna bring in get auth from Firebase authorization, because we're gonna do authorization, and we're gonna bring get Firestore from the Firestore because we're going to use database to store our data. Okay. Then we have the Firebase configuration inside of this variable here, which includes the API key with all that stuff, API ID, all that crazy stuff. And then at the bottom, we're gonna have a variable called app, which it will initialize this Firebase configuration that you see here. Okay. Now you notice that it's still red. It's because it hasn't been exported. We have to export it out so that the rest of the application can import it, can use it, right? That's the whole concept of object-oriented language. Basically, you have a class, you export it out, and other files are able to import it out, and then you start working through your files that way. That's how they share across each other. All right. So, but we're gonna get there. So now that we did that, we're gonna bring in another const. And we're gonna, it's already there. Copilot, that's this thing. AI, gotta love it. All right, so you got this other const, which is going to bring in a function for get authorization, and the get authorization is gonna include the application in it, so that you have authorization, reach across the entire app. Okay. Then we're also gonna bring another one called const Firestore. Well, let's call it DB. I like that. And also we're going to make sure that our entire app has access to the database. So we're including the app inside the arguments of these functions because we want to make sure that the authorization function and the storing, right, database storing function have access through the entire app. All right. So now that we have that, all we have to do left is export. There you go. We're gonna export those things. So export this and this. Notice that we're not exporting the app. Notice that we're not doing this. Okay, we don't need to because the app is already by default being exported within the arguments of these functions. So that is not necessary. Okay, so I believe we are right on the money on this. So now this is complete, okay, and we're gonna continue the console with this, and then we're gonna continue figuring this thing out. Alright, so now that we're here, we need to click on build and go to authentication down here. And we're gonna have to set up our authentication. We're gonna click on get started. And then what we're going to do is you have different ways that you can use Firebase for your authorization. The most common one for small projects and freelancers and all that is email and password. Okay, it's easy to do, very easy. But you can do it through different ways, phones and anonymous, and a bunch of other ways, including with logging in with Facebook, logging in with Google, things like that. Now, if you have a particular project with VPN or a bunch of other stuff and a bunch of crazy stuff, then this is probably what you're gonna end up needing right here, but then you're gonna have to upgrade to a different plan. We're gonna do email. So on the email, we're gonna enable that, and then we're not gonna enable this, and we're gonna save it, and bam, believe it or not, you are done. You have authorization capacity or capabilities. Yes, capabilities. So obviously you're not done because you have to create. We don't even have an app to use it in yet, right? But eventually we're gonna get there. Once we get to the login pages and all that stuff, we're gonna revisit this spot, and we're gonna start creating an actual user that we can play with and test the application and all that stuff. Okay, but for right now, the Firebase and Firestore is already up. All right, one thing before we leave, we did the authentication. We haven't done the Firestore database. There you go. So Firestore database, this is your database, okay? This is the other thing that we initialized here. All right, so we're gonna create a database, and this is fine. That's fine. I'm gonna create next, and you're gonna start in production mode, or you're gonna start in test mode. For right now, let's start in test mode. Once we're ready to go to production, we're gonna change this, and I'm gonna show you what you need to put in the rules. But for right now, let's start in test mode, just to make it easy for ourselves. But you only have, if you notice, you're gonna have until the 26th, so I think 30 days. You only have 30 days before this test mode expires, and then everything shuts down, okay? Obviously, we're not gonna keep this website up for 30 days, so I'm never gonna have to worry about this, but you'll have to worry about this, because assuming that you're following along, you're gonna probably wanna keep this website forever, right? So you do have to revisit this, but I will show you what to write. All right, so let's start it in test mode and create. And wait. And here we go. Close all this stuff. These are just explaining what's going on, but that's what I'm here for. All right, so that's it. You have your thing, and then eventually what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have after we create an authentication, we're going to create a way in here. It's going to collect everyone that is a user, but you're not going to really have access to this table. So what we're going to do eventually is we're going to create a collection here. Collection is basically a table, right? We're going to create a collection which has a document, which is basically a row in the table, and that document is going to be for each of the users that get authenticated and logged in. You're going to get a new document in this table, so that way you end up with a table of user accounts with all your users in there, with all the user information that you want to collect from them. And you're going to need this for many reasons, and one of them is, for example, for an account. If you want to have them if you want your website to have user accounts, and you want to make sure that whenever they log in, that it says welcome John Smith, click here for your account, and then they have, when they go to the account, they can do things that only applies to them. It has a way to change their password, their email, things like that. All of that will be inside of this database in here, this one that you see. All right, but for right now, let's not create it. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're gonna eventually get there when we get to the login and the get started and the create an account pages. So let's just stop here for now, and then I'll see you guys in the next one.